In this episode, I have a massive book haul. A book haul the likes of which this world has seldom seen. I'm not kidding. Harry Potter? Yes, even Harry Potter. Okay, so maybe I'm selling it a little bit here, but this was a massive book haul. I was at a fundraiser about a month ago, and I don't even remember who it was for, but it was a women's organization. It was a non-profit, and I wasn't sure what to expect, so I went with a little bag thinking maybe I'll find one or two great books. I ended up taking this four gigantic boxes. I was there with Sasha, my 7-year-old. It was great. They had a whole table set up with kid stuff. She could just run wild and pick whatever she wanted. It was about $1 a book. Like I said, I ended up with 4 books. Saw a lot of William Gibson right away. Just snatched all of that up. I'm going to go through this box. I haven't even looked at some of it since then because I wanted to do this on video with all of you and go through some of these together. Now, I bought these for different reasons. Sometimes I buy books that I don't necessarily think I'm going to use, but maybe somebody else will want to, so I'd like to have them on hand. I often give books away. Sometimes I find stuff that I think the kids will like when they're a little bit older. And sometimes there's things that I think I might read with the kids right now. I didn't grow up with Harry Potter. I watched the movies with the kids. It was okay for me. But now my daughter is sort of, when I can't find The Little Prince to read, I pick up Harry Potter because that's in her room. And I saw a whole bunch of the Harry Potter hardbacks, so I grabbed a couple of them. I wasn't sure which one we had here, but I knew we didn't have this. This is the Half-Blood Prince. We'll just line these up here as I find them. And then the other one I picked up was Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. These are nice books. I mean, for $1, there was no way I was going to just not pick them up. But I didn't want to take everything and just be a little bit greedy. So I'm going to just start stacking these up. Another one that I picked up was this set here. I'm picking up a lot of the younger stuff right here off the beginning, so I don't want to set the tone for this book haul that it's a lot of YA and younger audience, but I'm going to get these out of the way first. This is the Maze Runner series. I'm familiar with these because of the movies. I did not grow up with these either. The Kill Order, the Maze Runner, which I will assume is the original, and the Scorch Trials. I'm pretty sure that is the first sequel. The Death Cure, I feel like it's the last one. Kill Order, I'm not sure what that one is, but I'm not going to read through these because I don't want to really do a review on these, but I will mention that we have them. Alright, now, let's see what we've got, some good stuff. I was worried because I wasn't going to find any Isaac Asimov. I went through, it was tables and tables and tables of book. It's interesting because being a fundraiser, you could tell it was a lot of stuff that was donated. There's a lot of repeats of things. It's interesting to see what was so prolific. There was some Stephen King there, but I feel like even though that's very popular, I don't think people give away their Stephen King books. There's a lot of James Patterson. Man, if you can think of who you might think would have been in that pile of like really popular stuff that people were passing on, there was a female author that I know is pretty famous. I can't think of it now. Go into the comments, see if you can guess who it is. That might jog my memory, and I'll let you know if you guessed right. But there was a lot of representation of James Patterson. There was a lot of, surprisingly, Michael Crichton. There was a lot of, not surprisingly, I just didn't know he was as popular, maybe because of the Jurassic Park movies. Maybe that caught on a little bit. I want to say Nora Roberts maybe was another author, and John Grisham was well represented. There was about 5 or 6 really kind of popular authors that were really well represented. I didn't find any Asimov, and I thought, okay, there must have been some Asimov, and people snatched him up right away. But I think because with the pandemic, this is usually an event that a lot of kids go to with their schools, and they didn't do that this year. So there's really a lot to pick through. And it wasn't until I was about to leave and I had my 3 boxes that I saw they had a young adult section. I thought, let me just check over there. Maybe there's some stuff for the kids. And obviously I found this Maze Runner stuff. But that's where the Asimov stuff was. And it's like kind of like, that's not really young adult. But I like that it was there because I think Asimov is accessible for young adults, and I think it's a great time in like your young teenage years to start to get into Asimov Foundation series especially. I think there's a lot of value beyond just the entertainment and the brilliance of Asimov. I think it's a really good, if there's a should read, must read kind of literature, just as much as you'd have somebody in, I don't know, 8th or ninth grade read The Great Gatsby or The Count of Monte Cristo. Foundation series. This is Foundation and Earth. This is one of the Foundation books. Stack that up here. Then we've got The Naked Sun. This is part of, I believe this was in the Robots series. Asimov is one of my favorite authors. The Foundation series is one of my favorites. I also like the Robot series, although I prefer Foundation series above almost any, well, I think above any other series. The only one that's close is the Ender series. And it has been a while since I read them. I've mentioned in some of my past videos I'm looking forward to doing a top 10 video soon. And I'm not quite doing a top 10 yet because I know that some of my top 10s are books I've read a long time ago, and I want to read them again, not so much to prove to myself that they're still in my top 10, but just to refresh myself enough to really give a good review when I do the top 10. I don't want to just list books and not talk about them and not be heartfelt when I speak about them. Naked Sun, I don't remember which series this is. I'm pretty sure it's, yeah, this is the Robot series. We'll put that here. All right, some more Asimov, Caves of Steel. This is the I think what they wanted to base the iRobot movie with Will Smith off of. There's no way I'll ever pick up the iRobot book that has Will Smith on the cover. No offense to Will Smith. That movie was not iRobot. It maybe had a little bit of Caves of Steel in there, but this really feels like the first book of the Robot series. As brilliant as iRobot is, it can serve as a standalone or as the beginning of this series. And there's some more Asimov. Oh, here's another one. Foundation's Edge. I already have a lot of the Foundation series up here, but this is good. I'll either have a second set or I'll fill in some of the gaps. And again, at $1 or 50 cents a pop, couldn't pass it up. Let's see, we've got A Whiff of Death. This is a book I didn't even know existed, Isaac Asimov, and I thought I was pretty well read. I think in my last video I mentioned that my science fiction reads probably are in that 250 to 300 range in terms of books that I've read that would qualify as science fiction. Test Tube Murder. Everyone knew that Ralph Neufeld was careful, young chemist, especially his professor Lou Braid. That's why Ralph's accidental demise due to confusion of chemicals struck Braid as highly unlikely. The police agreed. All right, so this is a little bit of a crime and mystery story, a dazzling case of superior suspense and mind-boggling murder. Am I going to read this? Absolutely. I can't get enough of Asimov. When I finished reading Asimov, everything that he wrote previously that I thought I knew that he wrote, this was not in the list, so I got to get in on this. A Whiff of Death. Let's not get the ring light on that. All right. H.G. Wells, The Invisible Man, a classic. Read this probably 2 or 3 times. We'll eventually read it again because I will want to review it. And let's see. I'm not doing a review on all these because there's so many books to get through and I want to get through them. I kind of would love the idea if people see books that they like here, comment about them in the comment section and I'll keep it going. I will reply to every comment you make and I will keep the discussion going and I'll talk about these books. This is a book by Joel Haldeman, Camouflage. This is another book I haven't read. So a lot of what I picked up was stuff I haven't read either. Let's go real quick on the back here. Unknown to anyone, 2 creatures have wandered the earth for generations. The aliens have no knowledge of each other, but share a residual memory of a mysterious sunken relic and an affinity for deep water. One, the changeling, has survived by adaptation, taking the shapes of many different organisms. The other, the chameleon, has survived solely by destroying anything or anyone that threatens it. All right, I'm in. I knew I was in when I was got anyway. It's Joel Haldeman, great science fiction author. Oh, what have we got here? More Isaac Asimov, Murder at the Abba, wonderful book. Second Foundation, great book in the Foundation series. Robots and Empire, more of the Robot series. And I'm not going to do that one yet. All right, Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. This is obviously classic science fiction. This is a favorite of many. I do watch a lot of top 10 science fiction videos on YouTube. I'm not just creating content. I love to watch what other people are putting out. There's a lot of folks that have put out great top 10 lists. I see Hitchhiker's Guide in there a lot. I've read this twice. I read it the first time and it didn't captivate me. Second time I read it, I had a little more appreciation for it, but I'm not as enamored with Hitchhikers as much as everybody else is. Yes, there's funny moments, but it's not like I'm not rolling on the floor. There's subtle stuff in other books that actually I find more humorous. It's good. I don't have a knock on it, and it's not just me saying, oh, it's good, I don't have a knock on it, but I don't really like it. No, I liked it. I'm just not going to have it in a top 10 list. But it's unique in the realm of science fiction, for sure. All right, diversion from science fiction. Ken Follett, Night Over Water. One of my favorite not science fiction books is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett, so I'm willing to give another try to more of his stuff when I take a break from science fiction. Now that I'm booktubing and doing a lot of science fiction, a lot of niche talk and reviews, I'm finding it harder to read stuff that's not science fiction. But I guess like if I ever get to that point where I have like a few videos in the tank and maybe for a few weeks I want to divert from reading some science fiction, I might jump back into something like this. So it's good to have it on hand. And we have all these boxes. Let me move this one out of the way because I want to get into some of the stuff here. Oh, I've got this in my arm. Oh, I think a lot of you will know what this is. Martha Wells, Exit Strategy. This is part of the Murderbot series. I think I will do a review on the whole series at some point, so I'm not going to talk about each individual book. I might have a few of these in this haul. Let me see if these are it. Oh yeah, look at this. And again, $1 a pop. Why not? All Systems Red. And this is Martha Wells, Artificial Condition. So we're getting this series together here. I actually don't own any of those books already, so that was a great pickup. Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. Definitely different than the movie. I highly recommend reading Jurassic Park, and we have some follow-up here, The Lost World. I haven't read past this first book, and it's not because it wasn't worthy of it. This is a great book. Michael Crichton is a phenomenal writer. I'm glad these were there. That's why I picked them up. I will actually go through this again, and probably when I do, I'll get into the sequels. And we're going to run out of room on this bookshelf. And I think this is the first video where I've gotten all 3 levels of this particular bookshelf in here. And again, these are just on my bookshelf. I have a lot more books than this. They're all in boxes. And it's just because the whole purpose for me of having books is to have them around me. Things that I love. Now, these aren't all books that I love, but most of them are. Some of them are books I just finished or that have special meaning to me for some other reason, even if I didn't love them. But I like to have, there are certain books that I choose to be on the bookshelf because I want them around me. I like that energy when I'm in here. Call me crazy. The Kite Runner. Now, this one, I'm going to keep saying this. I mentioned this in a previous video. Again, not science fiction. Right now I'm reading this Far Pavilions. I'm not going to talk a lot about that because that's in a lot of my other videos and people are probably getting tired of me talking about that. The one thing I'll say is I always like to have a long-term book going, a book that goes on for a while that I keep coming back to after I've read 3 or 4 other books. Far Pavilions is that book right now. I'll probably get done that sometime in the next few months. When I do, I'm going to want another non-science fiction book to read. And I've read so many things and heard and watched so many good things on BookTube about the Kite Runner. And I actually thought it was longer than this, but it's actually only 300 pages. So I might make this my next sort of 300 pages. It's not going to be a long-term read, but I guess it'll be my next probably not quite science fiction, well, not at all science fiction read. Pile that there. Man, we're not even making a dent here, so we're going to be here for a while. Feel free, again, get into those comments. I'd really love to talk about this. There are so many books here that I've got to think that I'm going to hit a few that people really like and really love, even if they're not the same ones I like and love. But I think those are the kind of things that motivate me to read certain books. All of these books, I think, are things that I'll probably want to read, except for maybe like the Maze Runner stuff. So if you see something and you like it and you want to encourage people to read it, I don't know if you're like me. Like there's books that I love, like you must read the Foundation series. I want everybody to read the Foundation series. There's so much to get out of it, not just the entertainment, but it's so valuable. And there might be books like that in here that I'm not necessarily aware of, but if we talk about it in the comments, it's made me more likely to make it on my list, and I'll appreciate that. More Ken Follett, Fall of Giants. This is another one I want to get back to. The Count of Monte Cristo. Do you love it? Did you hate it? Were you forced to read it at some point and it wasn't quite the right book for you? Let me know. And here we got some big boys coming up. Look at this. Again, $1 a book. Stephen King, 11/22/63. Nice looking hardcover here. It's going to look nice up on the shelf. It's nice to get through this haul too, because there are some of these that I want to fill in the shelf, and there's a couple things that are ready to come down off of the shelf, so we'll get some of these up there. Now these, I think this is the Mistborn series. Yeah, I already had this series, but this was a nice series and it was all together. It was $1, so yes, I got this. And I keep saying that, you know, when I jump back into, it's not that I've never read fantasy, so I might have created that impression that I've never read fantasy. I have read some fantasy, I just don't read it much. I read historical fiction even more than I read fantasy. I do want to jump back into it. It's a little overwhelming because every time I turn on YouTube, some of my favorite YouTubers are talking about a new fantasy book. Some of my favorite YouTubers are doing science fiction and fantasy, and I started watching for the science fiction. I kept watching because of the personalities, and I just generally really like these people. And the other thing is, I don't know what the other thing was, but here's some more fantasy. Brandon Sanderson, anybody who watches YouTube knows this is one of the more popular, famous authors that is talked about, and Mistborn is obviously one of the most talked about. Well, maybe not as much right now because we've got Shadow and Bone going on, and the Malazan series are picking up. So anyway, I'll get to these at some point. And this is great classic. Slaughterhouse-Five, Kurt Vonnegut. I already have this book. I don't have this edition. Here's Slaughterhouse-Five here. I don't know if you can see it. It's a different edition. So that's one that's up on my shelf. It's not in my top 10, but it's a book that is important to me because it's one of my early reviews on the BookTube channel, and I do like it, and I really like Kurt Vonnegut. So that's up there. And when I see books that I really like, I do like to have different editions of it. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this down. This is, I just really like this edition of Neuromancer. And Neuromancer is one of those that's like right on the border of my top 10 for different reasons. Let me get this out of the shine of the light. Look at that cover. And that's pretty cool. And this is like, I think the Japanese version, or one of the Japanese editions. And I actually have another one here somewhere. I don't think I'm going to see it. And I don't want to stand here in this video, which is already going to be pretty long, and I don't want to be stand here looking for other books up on the shelf when I've got hundreds of books down here. Look at this already. I mean, this is just one day. And I was not planning to leave that book sale with more than like 2 books. I just got a notice on the listserv. There's another book sale coming up this weekend in the neighborhood. I don't know what to expect with that one either, but if it's anything like this last one, I might need some more bookshelves. All right. One of my absolute favorite authors, Ursula Le Guin, Tales from Earthsea. This is really great too. I wish I wasn't putting these in that shine of the light here. I really like this cover on this edition as well. Okay. Let's see if there's, I like to read it. This is a great story, so I'd like to give you a little bit of background on it, but doesn't tell too much here. So we'll cover this in another video. I'm going to keep saying that. Yes, I sound like a broken record. Tales of Earthsea, Ursula Le Guin. I don't think I have this copy. I know I have the Dispossessed up here. I have Left Hand of Darkness, which is one of my favorites. I haven't decided if that's going to be in the top 10 or not. It's definitely in my top 15, top 20. It might be in my top 10. I don't have my list so identified just yet. But Left Hand of Darkness is just a wonderful, wonderful book. Oh, look at this. I didn't know I had 2. The Other Wind, Ursula Le Guin. Another great one. And this is part of Earthsea as well. It's been a joy to go back to Earthsea and find it still there, entirely familiar, and yet changed and still changing. And this is from the foreword to Tales from Earthsea. Okay, so that doesn't help you guys out much here. Okay, here we go. A wizard, a mender of pots, a king, a dragon, and a burnt girl face the power of the dead. The sorcerer Alder fears sleep. He dreams of the land of death, of his wife who died young, and longs to return to him so much that she kissed him across the low stone wall that separates our world from the dry land. Okay, so you can tell this is a little bit of fantasy. And like I said, you know, this is something I've read before. It's been a long, long time. And I haven't read fantasy in a really long time, but LeGuin is, one of these authors that straddles, science fiction and fantasy and just does it great. She's a wordsmith, and I highly recommend the Earthsea series from her. What else do we got here? Oh, more Ursula Le Guin and more of this. I know this is Earthsea. This one is probably the most recent of the Earthseas that I've read, which makes sense. It's the last book of Earthsea, of course. I'll show you that to you. And now this copy has a $16 price tag. And not to get too geeky with the prices and stuff, but I just noticed this one was like a $25. These books were $1. This is crazy. And look at all of this. I mean, what if I were paying full price for these? Crazy. Some more Michael Crichton. There's like 4 copies of this. I've never read this. Micro. I've heard good things about it. And a nice picture of Crichton there on the back. Let's see if there's anything about this book. And there's not. I picked it up not knowing anything about it, so we'll see. It's got a bug on the cover. Looking good. We got some more Michael Crichton. State of Fear. No idea what this one is about either. These are 2 of his books that I have not read. And State of Fear doesn't sound very sci-fi. In Paris, a physicist dies after performing a laboratory experiment for a beautiful visitor. In the jungles of Malaysia, a mysterious buyer purchases deadly cavitation technology built to his specifications. In Vancouver, a small research submarine is leased for use in the waters off New Guinea. And in Tokyo, an intelligence agent tries to understand what it all means. So we've got different theaters going on here. My guess is it's all going to come together. Oh, that's a good read. This feels like something that I would probably enjoy taking on an airplane or on a beach vacation and sitting down. Different books have different feels for different places. I'm not going to sit and read Slaughterhouse-Five on the beach. This feels like something that just fits that vibe. All right, what's next? Oh, we've got some more Isaac Asimov. That's a good haul. Robot City. Okay. I don't even remember that one in the Robot series. Is this like maybe something that came after? Man, it's been a while. All right. Ender's Game. I've got too many copies of this. This one I definitely bought because I assumed I was going to give it away. Ender is up here somewhere. He might be covered by Palo. It's Palo many years ago, that picture up there. That's my son. And this is a great book too, Nemesis. This is a standalone by Asimov. He's known obviously for his series, Foundation series, Robot series. But some of, there's The Gods Themselves and Nemesis are, like, to me, 2 of his best standalones. Put that up there. I don't know who's going to clean this bookshelf. Neil Gaiman and Nazi Boys. So again, a little bit more into the fantasy realm here. And Annecy Boys, God is Dead, Meet the Kids. When Fat Charlie's dad named something, it stuck. Like calling Fat Charlie. Even now, 20 years later, Charlie Nancy can't shake that name, one of the many embarrassing gifts his father bestowed, before he dropped dead on a karaoke stage and ruined Fat Charlie's life. Mr. Nancy left Fat Charlie things. Things like tall, good-looking stranger who appears on Charlie's doorstep, who appears to be the brother he never knew. A brother as different from Charlie as night is from day, and a brother who's going to show Charlie how to lighten up and have a little fun. And does he ever? Just like dear old dad. And all of a sudden, life starts getting very interesting for Fat Charlie, because you see, Charlie's dad wasn't just any dad. He was a Nancy, a trickster god, the spider god. Really good fantasy. And what would you expect? Neil Gaiman, one of the absolute best. And I'm actually more familiar with Gaiman than I am with Sanderson or Malazan or some of the other much more popular authors right now. I shouldn't say much more popular. I mean, there aren't many more popular than Gaiman. Brave New World, Aldous Huxley. This is a classic. If you want to hear my thoughts on this, I did a long 5 likes and 5 dislikes on this a little while ago. It's on my channel. You can find it. I did a shorter version of that in my recent... I did the review of the Portalist. The Portalist in 2018 did a must-read science fiction. I think that was an episode I just released last week, depending on whenever you're watching this video. And I did a shorter version of that review, so you can find that in either part 1 or part 2 of that review of Portalist's 13 must-read science fiction classics. This was on that list, and rightly so. A lot of people in the comments told me, like, of the dystopian stuff, this is maybe the one that shouldn't have been in there. 1984, yes. Maybe Fahrenheit 451. Some people didn't think this aged as well. I think it's still very relevant today. Check out some of those reviews that I talk about that. Alistair Reynolds, Pushing Ice, great Welsh author. Also the author of House of Suns, which you can't see anymore because these books are covering everything, which is great. What more to be covered by than books, to be surrounded by books and science fiction books. Alistair Reynolds, Pushing Ice, and here we've got Absolution Gap as well, Alistair Reynolds, so that'll be nicely at home. Here's some of the first stuff that I found when I walked in there, and this is what kept me in the room. Look at all this William Gibson. There's William Gibson. Zero History, William Gibson. We've got Spook Country, Spook Country, William Gibson. And this one I don't know. Pattern Recognition, William Gibson. I haven't read this one. And William Gibson, author of Neuromancer. I'm going to put these down here on the table, this giant oak table. This giant oak table, you can't see it. Maybe I'll take a picture of it. It's a mess right now, so I'm not going to tilt the camera down. This was my dining room table, our family's dining room table when I was a kid. I'm 45 years old. This was I was like 5 years old eating at this table, so this is a really old table, and it's giant. It's oak, and doesn't work as a dining room table anymore, so now it's the desk here in the office. Some more William Gibson. Did I mention Gibson was the author of Neuromancer? Here's another edition of Neuromancer. I'm not sure what I think of this edition. I wasn't even familiar with this cover, but whenever I see Neuromancer, I'm going to pick it up even if I already have it. Again, it's one of my favorites, and it's such an important piece of science fiction because it's really the first cyberpunk novel that really set the tone. And, you know, we've had people like Neil Stephenson who have sort of taken that torch and run with it as well. But this is really the original. It's a very challenging story. I did a 5 likes and a 5 likes review of Neuromancer. And I also did a how to read Neuromancer. And I think I'm probably going to do like a Neuromancer glossary video too. Because I think if you want to jump in with Gibson and all these other ones, there was just the one I have. This is Distrust That Particular Flavor. These are all somewhat different, and there's some common things to his writing. But it can be very challenging to read Gibson. He has a way of like not pampering you and, you know, being thoughtful in terms of like, you don't know what I'm talking about, so let me help you out. He's not going to do that. So I think if you want to jump in with Gibson, start with Neuromancer because it's the most classic of what he's done and the most well-known. And if you're a science fiction fan or you like the idea of cyberpunk, it's a good way to jump in. But it's much more enjoyable to follow some of the tips I give for how to read Neuromancer. And if you're not going to watch that video, like at least like maybe while you're reading the first couple of chapters of Neuromancer, maybe listen to the audio book with Gibson's reading and, you know, read a chapter, maybe listen to part of that chapter with him. Just his inflection and his tone, how he talks about things, you get a feel for what is what. A lot of times he'll use the same thing will have 3 different names, and they're all names you have not heard of before, and it can just be helpful to have a little bit of a guide going into that, or even create a glossary on your own. You can Google, you know, what is this word as you read. That's going to make it a lot easier, but it's also going to make it more enjoyable. Science fiction, one of the great things about not all science fiction, it has to be, I don't know, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but I like in science fiction, and I accept in science fiction, there's a lot of times you open a book and you're reading, you're like, oh, I just wish I knew what was going on so I could get into the story. But there's such a value in not knowing everything that you're reading because the author's just throwing stuff at you that he knows you don't know, and if you just kind of let it pass through you, you'll eventually pick it up and it just enriches the story. Gibson does that a lot. He doesn't help you out, but if you help yourself out a little bit, you'll really enjoy Neuromancer and Distrust That Particular Flavor, which is, it's not my favorite Gibson, but it's a good one. And another Ken Follett, Fall of Giants. This is a nice big paperback. I just want to see if this is, yeah, I mean, this is a $36 book for $1. Somebody spent a lot of money on it. I don't know if it got read. It's in pretty good condition. I think somebody bought this and was like, I'm not going to read it. Let me just donate it to this thing. And to the winner goes the spoils. What's it? No. The Coming of the King, Nikolai Tolstoy. Again, so it's not all going to be science fiction in here. And this looked like a nice copy here. And this could be another kind of long-term read, something that I'll pick up in. Tolstoy's not the easiest read, so it's something like I might read in small chunks. And this one I bought one of my favorite booktubers who has a small channel, but a great channel, really unique. I pretty much picked this up because I know he's a fan of Arthur C. Clarke. Arthur C. Clarke is actually not one of my favorite science fiction authors, which is not a way of saying that I don't like Arthur C. Clarke. I don't think a lot of his stuff hasn't aged really well for me, which is funny because I think people could say that about Asimov or others, but like the ways in which Asimov's work has not aged has to do with kind of like, you know, characters are acting kind of like, you know, smoking and things like that that are like seem anachronistic or don't fit in with the time. But the ideas are so vast, and you know, it's like I think there's somebody's trying to do a Foundation series, and I just can't imagine it being great. And I like when books I love are sometimes created into film or TV, and a good job is done with them because I like to see somebody else imagining them. I have such a connection to the Foundation series. I just can't imagine how somebody's going to do it proper justice, and I almost really don't want to see it happen because the ideas are so vast. And I think that's why Asimov's work is so timeless, because the ideas and the philosophy is still so brilliant. Arthur C. Clarke, who was, you know, just so brilliant in his time, a lot of his stuff has been copied and evolved upon, which it's not his fault. I mean, when you do great work, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, of course, but it just seems like, you know, Childhood's End, for example, you know, we start out with like just this kind of, you know, making first contact sort of thing with the alien race, and then nothing happens for the whole book, and then the book is kind of boring for the whole book, and it's a short book, and then you get to the end, and I don't want to say it's the big reveal, but I guess it's kind of the big reveal. It's this idea of what humanity is becoming and evolving to, or what the aliens are trying to do, and they're not really bad guys per se. Regardless, the idea is something that I've seen done since, which, again, it's homage to Clarke, but they did it with TV shows. I'm thinking of Stargate and some other books that have done similar things as Childhood's End, but has done it over more pages or more minutes of screen time, and really made the idea more exciting. So I will take a look at this. This looks like an Asimov book I got too, and I don't have the Asimov book that was in this book haul that had Foundation and a few other of his novels in there. I'm assuming because this looks like almost the exact same cover that this is going to have a number of different Clarke stories. The City and the Stars, A Space Odyssey, which to me is really one of the great works of science fiction. So again, Clarke may not be one of my top authors, but you know, I respect the work. Space Odyssey is phenomenal. Rendezvous with Rama, which I have up here, is phenomenal. We've got The Fall of Moondust. So these are omnibuses are pretty cool because I'm guessing there might be like one in there that I haven't read. And in the Asimov, I can't imagine there's one I haven't read in there. The one Asimov I think that just kind of snuck by me was that first one that I brought up. I'm not going to find it in that pile, and that's okay because I'll find it later. The last one in this giant box, Michael Crichton, The Andromeda Strain. Great story. Okay, maybe some people have read this. So now we've got a big sampling so far. I've got still this little box full. This was 4 boxes. I put it in this big giant tub to consolidate them. That's why I don't have 4 boxes here right now. And I'm going to go through this box and pick up the rest. I wasn't sure if I was going to show this one because there's always mixed reactions. I'm not promoting it. I'm not promoting the ideology, but it was $1, and this was a book I read when I was really young, and the reason it has a place in my heart is because when I was really young and I read I was too young to read this book. I wasn't supposed to read this book at this age. I mean, what was I, 10 or 11 or 12? Maybe I was 12. Yeah, I could have been 10, but that would have been too young to read this and understand it. It didn't form my ideology. I did like the storytelling, and maybe it was just, you connect with ways people tell stories. The characters were interesting. There's a big chunk at the end. I'm going to keep talking about maybe see if people can guess what this book is before I pick it up and show it. I don't know if you could see it when I was picking it up. But there's a big chunk at the end where there's like 60 pages of just one character monologue spouting ideology that I'm sure a lot of people don't like. And when I see this book talked about, there's long comment sections of like, that author, she's so terrible, or I hate her, or, just really terrible things about the author, which is fine. That's not my jam to get into. I liked the story. I got it. I don't think I would have put it on my shelf, though. I'm not sure why I bought it then, but it's a big, chunky, thick hardcover, and I thought it's $1. I'm going to get it. I could read through this again. I just don't know if I will or not, so it's just one of those things, like, I'm not going to put it out, but I'm going to, like, put it in... This bookshelf has, like, some drawers, some doors. I'll, like, put it there so it'll be there, but I don't know if I'll ever take it out again, but I've got it. If somebody asks me about it and they show an interest, like, it's one that I could give away as for somebody. And, oh, look at this. There's a note. And you still don't know what this book is, but let's see. To Emily, congratulations on your high school graduation, June 2003. And we can't read the person's name there, so we won't do that. And, wow, this was, let's see, $60 in Canada. So this was an expensive book. Tremendous in its scope, this novel presents an astounding panorama of human life, from the productive genius who becomes a worthless playboy to the great steel industrialist, that should probably give it away, if I haven't given it away already, who does not know that he is working for his own destruction, to the philosopher who becomes a pirate, to the composer who gives up his career on the night of his triumph. So you have to know by now, if you've read this book, you know that I'm talking about Atlas Shrugged. Okay, so again, I think a lot of people claim this as like their Bible for political reasons, who probably have not read the book, because it's definitely more of like, obviously it's objectivism, but I think it's more of a libertarian sort of point of view. And it is. I think the criticism of it is how cold-hearted the author is in her ideologies, and I'm not here to talk about that so much, just showing books that I got out of book haul. And this was a story. When I was reading this book, I didn't know of the political implications of it or anything like that, but it was an interesting story to me. So enough qualifications on that. We'll put this over here for now. If you hated it, get down in those comments section and tell me, how dare you show that book on here. This great book haul, so great, and you've got Atlas Shrugged in there. Go ahead, rip it apart. Or if you really liked it, I guess talk about that too. William Gibson, Spook Country. Man, I got a nice haul. I'm going to have a great collection of Gibson here. Some of these I have up here, but I think I only have it's mostly Neuromancer up there. I think I have Spook Country up there too. Isaac Asimov, I forgot this was in here. I didn't think I got any Foundation other than what was in that omnibus. This is a cool edition. I like this. We've got, it's got to be Harry Seldon there on the wheelchair. And yeah. You know what? I'm guessing there are people on here that don't know the Foundation series, so let's just read the back of the cover. I was intent on not reviewing too much of these books, but I actually don't really like book hauls when it's just reading the covers too, so I'm trying not to do too much of that either. I just want to show everybody the books, and I think my intent for this video is see how many great books there are here and really get this going in the comments. The Galactic Empire had lasted for 12,000 years and ruled over 1 million planets, but now it was dying. Harry Seldon, creator of the science of psychohistory, knew that its death would be followed by 30,000 years of brutal barbarism and savage warfare. To preserve knowledge and shorten the dark period to a mere 1,000 years, Harry Seldon set up the Encyclopedia Foundation and staffed it with the best scholars and scientists of the empire. Then he placed it on Terminus, and not going to spoil this story, but Asimov created this whole like subject matter of psychohistory and then this gigantic universe and different ends of the universe with different foundations. Absolutely brilliant. If there's anything that I can ever inspire people through science fiction or inspire people to read that is science fiction, if I can ever have that impact on my channel, the one thing I want to inspire people to read is Foundation. Read the first 2 books of the Foundation series and see if it just doesn't grab you and suck you in. And then you'll come back and say, Mike, thanks for introducing to me this. I would have hated to have gone through life never having read this or experienced this work. So that's the strongest recommendation I can give for a book. The Currents of Space, Asimov, the Empire novels. Got that. Oh my gosh, we're almost at the end of this. And we've got William Gibson, Burning Chrome. Awesome book. I don't know this one. The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. It's not my kind of cover or anything. There's something about this that made me say, let me get it. Handmaid's Tale, everybody I think knows from Margaret Atwood, and I think the Hulu series. Good book, good dystopian. Not one of my top 3 or 4 in dystopian novels, and I felt like I was in some discussions about that recently. I like Handmaid's Tale. I figured I should give Margaret Atwood more of a chance to see what I really think of her work, because the only thing I have read of hers is The Handmaid's Tale. So I'm going to check that out. So it's good that I got a lot of stuff here that's just going to be on the shelf for a while. I got some stuff that I've read before that I'll probably read again, but not for a while. Some stuff I read before that I'll probably read again pretty recently. Like I'll go through Foundation again because I haven't read that in a long time. And then there's a few things that I've never read before, but of this whole haul, there's like 3 or 4 books, I think that's it, that fall into that category of I've never read, and I think I'll read pretty soon. I don't think I'll read Blind Assassin pretty soon, but I could see reading that this year when I get through like the first chunk of my TBR, because that's not on the TBR. And the last one, Ken Follett, World Without End. Again, another large novel. So this is another one. It's just like, I like this author a lot just from, God, how long have I been talking now? I can't remember it now. Pillars of the Earth. Pillars of the Earth is great. I really want to watch. I never watched. I think they did a movie for it. And I hate that I didn't read it. I didn't watch that right after I read the book. Because I read the book, I think, last year or the year before. And then I looked for the movie for it. And I found it. I'm going to watch this. And now it's been like 2 years. And it won't be the same because I didn't just read the book. So I will probably enjoy the show or the movie more because of that. But I miss out on that experience of having just read the book and then watching the movie. Ken Follett. I don't want this to end now because I think I've been talking forever. But that's the book haul. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I'm Michael Levers. This is Fit to be Read. Please like. Please subscribe. Click the notification bell. If you do, YouTube will let you know on Thursdays at 1 o'clock when I release new content. Thank you for watching.